Would you survive one day in Boston in 1775 when the soldiers outside your door were not there to protect you? The air is cold and damp, heavy with salt and smoke. The wood beneath your feet is slick from the night tide, creaking softly. Somewhere nearby, boots strike planks in a steady rhythm. A musket lock clicks, and gulls scream above a forest of masts standing against a pale sky. Today, you walk through a single day in Boston on the brink of revolution, rebuilt through AI Reconstruction, maps, eyewitness accounts, and the logic of the streets. 7 stops across a single day, from the harbor at dawn to the barricaded land bridge at night. Each step tightens the city. Each hour makes escape harder. Stop 1, harbor, dawn. You step off a small sloop onto Long Wharf at first light. The wooden pier stretches about 1,600 feet into deep water, groaning under the weight of ships and cargo. Ropes creak. Masts knock softly in the wind. Tea crates sit stacked beside rum barrels and dried cod, all watched by armed sentries. Nothing moves without being seen. Nothing leaves without permission. A merchant with a polished coat and sharp voice argues with a ship's captain about duties and delays. A redcoat stands close enough to hear every word, musket resting casually against his shoulder. The smell is thick and layered, sweet molasses, rotting fish, wet hemp rope, and smoke drifting from nearby warehouses where fires have already been lit. Out in the harbor, a warship sits broad and still, its guns facing inward toward the town, patient and confident enough not to move. No one doubts what it is there for. A fishmonger shouts prices over the noise of gulls and rigging, his voice hoarse from salt and cold, while scales crunch underfoot as people pass his cart. A woman in homespun argues with a customs clerk, her jaw set, her words clipped, and a dockhand pauses just long enough to listen before lifting another barrel. Someone mutters about tea dumped into the harbor more than a year ago, about fortunes sunk deliberately into black water, and another voice answers that the port has been paying for it since Parliament shut it under the Boston Port Act. This wharf feeds Boston and controls the flow of its life. Now, you turn inland, away from the open water, and the city closes around you almost immediately. The ground becomes mud, thick and rutted, with no sidewalks to keep feet clean or separate bodies from carts. Houses rise 3 stories high on either side, leaning inward, clapboards stained dark with age and soot, windows close enough to pass words across. Chimneys leak smoke that stings your eyes and settles into your clothes as pigs root freely in the gutters. As you move deeper into town, the crowd thickens and slows, forcing everyone into the same narrow channels. Cartwheels scrape stone, voices overlap, and no one moves quickly unless they must. The smell shifts constantly, from baking bread to raw meat, from manure to waste draining toward the harbor. Nothing here is hidden. Nothing is quiet for long. By the time you reach the market near Faneuil Hall, the square is already alive with noise and motion. Butchers work openly at their blocks, knives striking bone, blood darkening the dirt beneath their boots. Prices are shouted and argued over, and everyone notices how much higher they are than they used to be. Bread costs more, beef costs more, and the strain shows in faces as clearly as hunger. Inside the hall, the air feels different, heavier, charged with voices rising and falling beneath flickering whale oil lamps. Ledgers lie open on worn tables, fingers trace numbers that refuse to balance, and words like acts and rights travel fast through the room. No one speaks softly. No one speaks freely either. Below, in the market stalls, hands slip into pockets and withdraw unseen. When you step back out into Dock Square, the noise seems to double rather than fade. Drill calls carry in from the outskirts beyond the occupied town. Women spin homespun cloth in doorways, deliberately visible, while children weave between carts and geese as if this crowded disorder is normal life. Church bells toll for morning prayers, and the sermons behind them sound less patient than they once did. By midday, the harbor feels tighter, more constrained, as if the water itself is holding its breath. Idle ships rot at anchor, their rigging slack, hulls stained and peeling from neglect. Fishermen with nothing to do gamble on crates and curse the governor in low voices, careful not to be overheard. British ships dominate the bay, their crews drilling with cutlasses flashing in the sun. You slip into a tavern near Union Street to escape the glare and noise, and the air immediately turns thick with pipe smoke and alcohol. The ceiling hangs low and blackened, ale spills onto sand-strewn floors, and laughter erupts suddenly before dropping just as fast. Arguments spark without warning, flare briefly, and die, leaving tension behind them like heat. A heated poker plunges into a mug to make flip, the drink hissing and foaming as the scent of molasses and rum fills the room. In a back space, partially hidden from the main floor, voices lower and movements become careful. Paper slides across wood, hands pause, and decisions begin to take shape quietly, protected by noise and drink. Outside, drums pass in steady rhythm, windows rattle as boots march by, and someone throws an apple core that misses its mark. The tavern swallows the sound and keeps its secrets. The afternoon pulls you north again, into streets that narrow until sunlight feels optional. Rope walks stretch long and straight, fibers twisting endlessly into cord for ships that may soon serve different purposes. Tar and hemp coat the air, sticking to skin and clothing. Chalked messages appear briefly on walls, then vanish as quickly as they came. The spire of Old North Church rises suddenly above the roofs, pale and still, watching over the lanes. Inside, the floor creaks under shifting weight, and beneath it, bodies lie stacked in crypts beneath family names. Above, the bell waits, silent for now, holding a promise it has not yet been asked to keep. You look up and imagine light where there is none yet. How much warning does a town need before it moves? Nearby, you hear a loud hammer hitting metal as you walk past a silversmith's shop. Tankards and bowls gleam on shelves, catching the light, while maps and papers rest half-hidden beneath cloth. Engravings change hands quickly, showing earlier bloodshed in stark lines that refuse to fade from memory. Late afternoon opens onto Boston Common, and the space feels wide after the confinement of the streets. Tents sag under tired bodies, smoke hangs low, and the ground smells of trampled grass and refuse. Fifes scream and drums impose order on chaos as soldiers drill while civilians move cautiously at the edges. Food changes hands, information changes faster, and no one pretends this is just another day. From Beacon Hill, the harbor spreads out below. Forts sit heavy on the water, and signals flicker briefly before falling still. Cannonballs stack quietly near campfires, and hands sew cartridge boxes by fading light. Someone sings softly, a tune that steadies more than it entertains. From here, the city looks smaller, more fragile than it felt below. As evening falls, you move toward the Charles River, where flatboats push off without sound, oars dipping carefully into darkening water. On the far shore, houses watch with unblinking windows, and ground waits to be broken. Nothing has happened yet, and that is precisely what makes every movement feel heavy with consequence. Retreat begins to feel less possible with every step. Night closes in as you reach Boston Neck, the narrow land route that connects the town to the countryside, a guarded choke point where movement can be controlled. Water presses close on both sides, wooden spikes rise from the earth, and cannon sit behind packed dirt. The drawbridge stands ready to decide who may pass, and whispers move through the dark faster than footsteps. Behind you, the city breathes shallow and uneasy, while ahead, unseen, the countryside prepares itself. Maps, letters, tax rolls, and court records preserve the pattern of a city learning resistance under pressure. Crowded streets teach resistance. Constant surveillance teaches organization, and sustained pressure teaches speed. Lanterns flicker in windows. Drums beat in the distance. The city holds its breath,